Yeah, I mean, the only thing these decks really lost was Growth Spiral. Like obviously Wilderness Reclamation got axed, but a lot of these Growth Spiral decks existed before that. Even in the face of that. And they existed when Fire's Invention was around. Losing Growth Spiral is a big deal. And I think it just means that there's a much greater emphasis on Euro Titan Nature's Wrath. But there's also an emphasis on people just trying to fill their graveyard a little more easily. I feel like that's just a much more important thing. Because Growth Spiral was like such a freebie, and now it just doesn't exist.
And having played a lot of the red deck, I feel like Growth Spiral is often very important in these matchups. It's because a lot of your more expensive spells get stuck in your hand. It's like both players were on 6 this game. Burton keeps 3 lands, putting a Bone Crusher Giant to the bottom. And has a nice little curve here. Scorch Spitter into Steamkin with an Anax waiting in the wings.
A Bone Crusher Giant is pretty good when your opponent has small creatures, but this Sultai ramp deck, not really about that. It's way more about ramping with things like Cultivate, interacting with things like Thought Erasure. But I'm looking over the list, and it doesn't look like there's many, if any, sweepers in the main deck, just a bunch of spot removal. So this early start from Burton with mono red might actually just be a little too much for the Sultai ramp deck to handle.
And the big thing, despite the format kind of pushing the ban list growing ever longer for Simic cards, we still have 3 Ether Gusts in Nightingale's main deck. And that's going to matter in a matchup like this, though. Anax has come down. Scorchbitter's been able to connect a couple times. Nightingale eliminated that Steamkin. It won't be running away with anything, but this Robber of the Rich being added to the battlefield. Burton with a good spread of pressure.
Yeah, Eliminate a really nice pickup for some of these black-based decks in Standard. Removal spells were pretty weak in the previous Standard format because the format was way about Euro and ramping. Now, obviously, Euro is still going to be a major player because it just kind of filled the gap as an extra Ghost Sprawl on the front half. But it's just like creatures are just unlocked again because there's no Wilderness Reclamation, no Growth Spiral, and spot removal is just actively good now, which is great.
Ether Gust pushed Anax to the top of Burton deck. He's happy drawing that again. We saw Robber of the Rich that exiled an Uro. That's one that we probably won't see Burton cast putting in Nightingale's graveyard. But it is nice to remove it from the equation here. You see Llanowar Visionary draws a card for Nightingale before getting shocked. Now Anax drawn again. You see an attack for 4. It's going to put Nightingale down to 8. And that's how much power Burton has here. And he'll steal a Casualties of War. You might have been happier with Nightingale drawing that one with the mana development where it is, but still getting attacks in, that's the big thing.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that there's just 8 power on the table. There's also Castle Embereth hiding out. A couple more lands drawn, and if Robber of the Rich is not blocked at some point, there's a good chance that it just gets to cast the Casualties of War, which is kind of rad.
Nightingale found a different copy of Uro, is going to gain some life. That means he's still facing lethal because of Castle Embereth, so needs something to go with that. Three mana up, though, a good spread of interactive spells in the deck. Light up the stage off the top for Burton. We'll see how this combat plays out.
Yeah, without being able to see the Sultai ramp deck's hand, it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen because a removal spell before combat can stop the Robber of the Rich, but it also creates Anax token. Shrinks the Anax a little bit, but you're still coming across for a lot of damage. If you want to cast Light of the stage, you don't get to Embrace, so you miss out on 2 points. Like, it's just, there's a lot of little micro decisions, and Burton decides to go for the light up, though,
It was kind of a game of chicken, and I think the tipping point was that Robber of the Rich. We saw that get Heartless acted. Right. If no spell was cast, you probably would have seen Burton just leave the opponent at 3 and cast Light Up the stage. But we see Eliminate, Nightingale goes to 6, and now Light Up hits 2 cards. Robber of the Rich and Fervent Champion. And you mentioned no sweepers in the Sultai list, so Burton's just going to add some stuff to the battlefield here.
Yeah, I feel like just playing the Fervent Champion makes a lot of sense. There's very little ways to punish you for doing so, and it means you get to unlock all your mana next turn for Castle Embereth, and every little creature and every point of mana matters here.
We'll see what Nightingale can do about it. See Fabled Passage going off. We've seen a few removal spells played. We've seen another Fabled Passage. I believe we're escaping Uro here.
Yeah, escape Euro, and then having 2 removal spells guarantees that he's back in the game, but having 1 removal spell means he might be able to survive. Ooh, what can this do?
Nissa, who shakes the world. See a floating of 4 mana, 1 card left over. Here comes Uro off that 4 mana.
There's another piece of 2 mana interaction, then this actually might be a huge swing in favor of Nightingale.
Yeah, the Nissa gets to untap one of these 2-color lands. A land was put in on Uro, so it would have to be this last card, but there was 1 left over and 1 off the top. Castle Embereth off the top for Burton. That doesn't add anything. And all the creatures, yeah, you just gotta go upstairs here. You're not playing a long game against this stuff.
You are not.
Thought Erasure stolen by the robber, that's nothing. So we're going to see some blocks.
Yeah, but Euro's going to eat the Anax, and or it's going to actually end up trading. Maybe they should swap blocks, actually.
Yeah, this block is set up so that this castle means Anax trades for Uro, like you said. Going to replace some satyrs. Yeah, that is not ideal for Nightingale.
No, I mean, I feel like it was just a misstep on the block, because if the Euro just goes in front of the robber of the rich, the land still trades. Burton's already played his land. There's perfect information to be known.
Here's Extinction Event that clears up the tokens, and Nightingale's still at 2, can make a blocker with Nissa. It would be sitting a lot prettier if the Euro made the other block last turn, though.
Right, and the Euro would be able to attack this turn, probably, and then that 3/3 alongside with it to block would provide him with perhaps a way to get back into this game, but that misstep on the block last turn might actually just be the downfall. But here's a Hydroid Crisis, man. What the heck?
Hydroid Crisis S=6, goes to 5, gets to wake up a land. Now there's just 2 really solid blockers. Just a Steamkin off the top. For a second, I was thinking we might be in top deck Ambercleave territory. That didn't happen, and the texture of the battlefield has changed quite a bit on the back of this Hydroid Crisis.
Yeah, gaining life, making a giant body, and then Nissa just making a 3/3 every single turn.
Here's another Uro. I've played this game a lot. This is demoralizing on the red side of things.
Absolutely. You were so far ahead, had such a good advantage, and then all of a sudden Extinction Event into a 6/6 Hydroid Crisis. Holy moly.
Just coming up barely short in combat on the way there. You see Teferi showing up, doing some looting. Let's escape Uro. Back up to 11 goes Nightingale, with a pretty substantial lead in terms of creatures on the battlefield. These lands off Nissa have Vigilance. They're also just bigger than Burton's creatures.
All right, this game is over. I just want to be clear on that. Burton is going to lose this game. His deck is not capable of coming back. What I want to talk about is Burton's sideboard has 3 copies of Claim the Firstborn. And I think that those are going to be real nice here. Taking a 6/6 Hydroid Crisis there would have won the game very easily. Let's see if he thinks similarly to me here.
Grab a Crisis, grab an Uro. A lot of big potential damage swings on that. Pretty into these Tybalts in the sideboard as well.
Yeah, the prevention of life gain is pretty sweet. Make some 1/1s that have like the body for the 4 copies of Castle Embereth. Wouldn't hate the Experimental Frenzy, just a way to generate a bunch of resources when your opponent's just trading 1-for-1 a bunch.
We see some Chandra, Acolyte of Flame coming in as well. In my experience, Shock is kind of the weakest card in the red deck in a matchup like this, and I'm a little cold on Bone Crusher Giant. You saw that was the bottom on the mulligan in game 1 as well.
I mean, there's a reason why Bone Crusher Giant didn't see like a ton of play in the previous standard format. It's just because Stomp wasn't that good. Now there's a lot more creatures running around. There's a lot more small creatures running around. So Stomp's a bit better. But when you're playing against a ramp deck, Bone Crusher Giant is one of your worst creatures, and Stomp is one of your worst removal spells. So even though it's a 2-for-1, it's a really bad 2-for-1. So you can just get them out.
And that's how you see Burton sideboarding. Out with the Shocks, out with the Bone Crusher Giant, and then trims on Embercleave at the end of it. Keeps on 7 this time. It's a 4-lander. One of them's Castle Embereth, and you have a 1 and a 3. And that sneaky Claim the Firstborn. We'll see if that can be a factor here. I suppose it's not so sneaky given that the deck lists are open, but it is there.
Yeah. You know, I know Sandy's the master. I would have loved to have seen Claim the Firstborn on my own Scorch Bitter that turn to get a little extra damage. Just turn Claim the Firstborn into Shock. It's like a really aggressive use of it.
I just don't think you can make that play against an Uro deck. Like in Modern, you board out Lava Spike in these matchups, right? I just don't think you can make that play.
Sure, but the way that the mana usage was going to go, he like has to play Anax on 3, and then he has Castle Embereth rolled up, so he like probably is doing that on 4. It's just like a weird spot where like it's very rarely correct to do it, but like if the master did it, I'd be like, yes, master. Like, you know, you're so good, Brandon. He's so good.
I'm sure that card will be worth at least 2 damage no matter when he spends it.
Sure, but it might be worth 6 damage at the wrong time. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, if it's 6 damage at the wrong time, then 2 damage probably wasn't good. That's where it breaks down. All right, Robber of the Rich showing up. Fervent Champion, just some creatures coming off the top from the point of the opener for Burton. Looking at a pretty solid attack this turn. We'll see if Nightingale has some kind of interaction. I think Ether Gust on Anax would be the play you would want to make. Eliminate after the Anax is 4. You see the oops in the emote. So 2 satyrs show up instead of 1.
Love the oops. Sometimes you get a little cute, you wait a little too long, and you get punished for it, and that's exactly what happened there. That's a nice pickup.
Hydroid Crisis stolen by the robber.
You rob from the rich, and you give to the red.
There's another Hydroid Crisis from Nightingale. The X equals 2. Ooh. What are we looking at here? We have Nightingale on 12. You see that claim. It's not lethal, but you can claim and Tibalt, use all your mana. Is that better than just using Castle Embereth this turn is the question.
I think so, because you don't lose any of your creatures, and without like a real sweeper effect, it becomes very hard to clean up all the creatures and the Tibalt. You know, like there's going to be like almost no recourse. If you go claim the Firstborn and the Tibalt, I don't think that there is any combination of cards that Nightingale can use to get out of it.
See Burton making the attack, picks up Ether Gust off the robber. Robber is going to trade with Krasis, and yeah, it's just going to be castle activation. A lot of damage because those champions getting pumped. It's going to put Nightingale down to 2. Yeah, I think it's just kind of like Burton was looking at 2 lines. Both of them are not really beatable, and this one leaves Burton with cards in hand. And you see Nightingale picks them up there.
Right. Not only cards in hand, but also hiding the information that he has brought and claimed the Firstborn, which you can assume if you're the ramp deck and you have a bunch of these large monsters in your deck, like you see claim the Firstborn, you're like, okay, that's why, that is the reason, right? But if you don't actually see it, there's always a chance that it's not there. And hiding that information has some amount of value.
Players looking at sideboard, going into game number 3. Burton eyeing Experimental Frenzy on the draw. Trimming Light Up the Stage.
Interesting.
I do like that. Light Up the Stage is a card that players probably don't sideboard out enough. In general, the spots where you want to sideboard it out is going to be in games where you were expecting to have some difficulty connecting with your creatures. Mm-hmm. Also on the draw, it's just like tougher to use it to make your land drops. You'll have less mana than your opponent. You won't always be able to leverage the cards as well.
Yeah, Spectacle in general, much harder to turn on when your opponent just like has a bunch of removal and blockers. In this matchup, I would expect that the live stage is almost always turned on. Like there are very few 2-drops that can block, but there's a lot of 2-drops that are removal based, right? So if like you're relying on your 1-drop to get in there and it just gets hit with an eliminate, there's a chance that your live stage just does nothing for 2 or 3 turns, and that's just unacceptable. And so Sandy just like cutting 1 to help mitigate that.
Yeah, you get hit by Eliminate, Ether Gust, into Extinction Event. You have Light Up in hand. You have to cast it for 3. That would probably be better as Experimental Frenzy, and that's the swap you see there. Frenzy is rough against Ether Gust. I will say that, but Sandy is presenting a lot of very gustable cards on the way there.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally just a Swiss Army knife at this juncture, right? It's, again, to mono red or mono green. Ether Gust is just either counterspell or sorry, it's either Memory Lapse or, you know, Vindicate. It's like just incredible.
I think quite a big upgrade for the red decks. This is a couple sets ago now, but in Theros Beyond Death, the release of Anax hardened in the Forge, making it so you kind of ask for a Gust on turn 3 more commonly instead of just a Doomblade effect. All right, apologies for whatever the skipping was here. We're underway in game number 3. We see Burton has a nice curve, Scorchbitter into Steamkin. Nightingale is playing an Ur on turn 3.
I feel like y'all can gather what happened. Some creatures were played, nothing died, a Euro was cast on 3.
Now, Burton looking at, unfortunately, only 2 1-mana spells to be paired with the Steamkin this turn, so likely will be casting a 3-drop over either of those right now. But he has a choice. He has Anax, Chandra, and Tibalt. It's going to go with Anax.
Yeah, it hits hard. If opponent kills it, then like gets pretty punished because it has 4 power, and you get 2 satyrs.
Here's Extinction Event. Yeah, let's call odd. Exile Anax and the Scorchbitter, but Burton has got a really nice follow-up because he cast 1 spell and now still has those 2 1-drops.
Yeah, this turn is going to rule. Call it, Ryan.
The first Fervent Champion, Steamkin to 2 counters. There's another one where that came from. Steamkin up to the 3 counters. That means it can make mana. And also a 1-drop off the top means you can cast... You have to choose between Tibalt and Chandra. We'll see where Burton goes with that. But you have the ability to make Chandra pre-combat, make the tokens. It looks like Burton is going to make that line. You can also Scorchbitter pre-combat, get that Steamkin up to 3. So you're going to see an attack coming in here for 9 damage.
Love it.
That's going to knock Nightingale to 8. And if you can attack for 9 one turn, you can attack for 8 the turn after.
Yeah, and that's after getting hit with an Extinction Event last turn that not only killed his 1-drop, but also exiled his Anax hardened by the Forge. So just an outrageous turn from Burton, really flexing the muscles of Runaway Steamkin here.
We'll see what Nightingale can do about it. I believe it was just Fabled Passage and Uro in the graveyard before that Extinction Event.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of food for it. I don't think it's coming back this turn. It's always highlighted if you can cast it.
Right.
I guess we're on time shifted though. So.
See, Fabled Passage cracked. We see land number 6 for Nightingale. So Swamp, maybe it is a Casualties of War.
Yeah, I mean, that card's pretty powerful, but I don't think it's quite enough to get the job done here. I mean, it'll save him for a turn. He's still going to be taking 6 down to 2, facing off against a Tibalt. Oh, my word.
Extinction Event. Well, that takes care of the creatures. You kind of need something to go with that. But with the way that Nightingale's sequenced, I'm expecting a 2-mana spell as well.
Same. He might be wanting to just hold up an Ether Gust, though, but it might be worthwhile to just go ahead and tag the Steamkin. There it is.
Yeah, there's Gust on Steamkin. I think that's a candidate for the bottom of the deck.
Same. Yeah, it's pretty bad as a 1-1 off the top. It's one of the worst top decks in this mono red deck, so Burn just going to let it go.
Team King goes to the bottom, Mountain off the top. You would have strongly preferred Castle Embreth. See Chandra makes some 1-1s. Tybalt joins the party.
It is board clear after board clear here from Nightingale, but he is at 6, facing down 2 Planeswalkers. Can he claw back into it? All he needs to do is get this Euro onto the table, but before he does that, he needs to find an answer to this Tybalt Rakish Instigator because it's keeping him from regaining those precious life points.
I imagine the ideal card here to set that up would be another Ether Gust, but that's a pretty specific ask.
Yeah, and then or another copy of Eliminate. That addition to these strategies has been phenomenal, and it would be extremely good here, just a 2-mana way to interact with either of these Planeswalkers.
Oh yeah, the new Smother does hit 3-mana Planeswalkers. That is a nice upgrade, but you have to have it. And Nightingale not really moving like he does. Three cards in hand, and Nissa who shakes the world. All right. See, floats blue and green, gets to make a 3/3. Uro gets to escape. It won't gain life, but it will draw a card. Robber of the Rich off the top. Definitely not lethal here. Chandra's going to make some tokens. Tybalt's going to make a devil. Robber will be cast.
This is a 100% shove face, and he's going to hit and eliminate. Let's go! Let's go, Sandy Dog! Come on! 2-mana
Everybody
removal!
going upstairs. Hydra Trace is stolen. I mean, that's an okay hit. Uro's going to eat that Robber. Nightingale goes to 3. See those tokens exiled. See what Nightingale can do from here. Has a lot more mana on this turn and 4 cards in hand.
Yes, the dreaded untapping with Nissu shakes the world. Let's see if Nightingale can not only take down this Tybalt, but recoup some of that life in the process.
Oh my.
Oh no.
Now, Casualties Award. Get your Devil, get a land, get your Tybalt. That means Uro's going to gain life this turn. A Devil goes upstairs for 1, but Uro's going to swing that the other direction with a gain 3 on attacks.
And even Claim the Firstborn on the Euro here, not going to be enough to get the job done. Burton is going to lose this game. I cannot imagine a card that gets him out of it here. This is brutal because those lands do have vigilance. It's going to be very hard to break through this wall of creatures. And with Nightingale going up to 5 life, that might just be a little too much for the Red Master, Sandy Dog MTG.
Uro's going to eat that Chandra, but like you mentioned, those lands have vigilance. That means that not even Claim on Uro is particularly good. Nightingale gonna pass a turn. Now you see Castle Embreth for Burton. That's not doing anything here, and he's got to pack him up. Tyler Nightingale on Sultai Ramp.